Okay, so in the previous video we talked about what classes and objects are and how they help us encapsulate information, right? Encapsulate our variables into one single under a object, right? So instead of having just a gender variable, we have tch.gender, meaning that the gender variable belongs to the object tch and we can only access the gender variable if we write tch.gender, right? Because the gender belongs to the tch object. And we also talked about constructors, right? Instead of always setting, after you create a person object, right? Instead of always setting the bob.name, the object.name equals to something that you want, right? You can choose to you can define a constructor like that, right? And you can pass in the name of the person as a parameter when you create the person object, right? And this Tanchen right, value would go into the variable name of person, and then we're setting tch, right? Tch referring to the person object, tch self is now equal to tch, then tch.name is equals to Tanchen. So on top of this, right, we can also have other parameters in our constructor. For example, we can have an age, then we can write self.age equals to age, right? And do note that self.age refers to the object's age, right? Object.age. So this age variable belongs to the object, right? Whereas this variable is the one that's passed in. So that's a key distinction. Um, and so if I go ahead and uh, get rid of this, okay, let's just so instead of just passing in the name, right, then I pass in the age as well. So in this case, let's put 19 as another parameter. So now our person constructor, right, constructor for the person class, right, we're creating a person object. We pass in two parameters. The first one is Tanchen Hao with corresponding to the name of person variable, and the next one is 19 corresponding to the age. And likewise for Bob, right, we can do the same thing. Plus 20, right? Then if we go ahead and let's say let's clean this up a little bit, let's get rid of the gender, this like that, and print tch.h, right? Then we're going to see 19 and we print bob.h, right? Then we're going to see 20. So so you can have as many parameters as you want, and you're just defining it as additional parameters of function. Now, one thing that we can talk about is this self parameter here. And that is this self, right? Whenever you define an object function, right, you need to have pass in this parameter self referring to the object that you are kind of accessing. So what I mean by this is, okay, let's talk about methods, something called methods, right? So if I have, let's say I wanted to, besides, so far we've been able to access the object variables, right? For example, tch.age, right? It's all good and nice, but what if we want the tch object to perform some sort of function, right? What if we want the tch person object to say hi? Then we can define a function that belongs to the object as well. So not only can variables belong to objects, actually functions can belong to objects as well. So how do you define a function belonging to an object, right? We write def and then we write the function name that we're interested in. So in this case, let's just call the function intro, right? And inside, if we want the function to belong to the object, then we need to pass in the parameter self. And do note that this def intro is within the class person class, right? It's within this class person because it has the indentation, which tells us that this code is inside the class, inside the person class. So we pass in self, right? And let's not have any other parameters passed in, meaning that it's a function that takes in no parameters, right? And then let's say print a formatted string, hello, I am, and then let's write self.name. So self.name, what is this thing over here? Okay, let's go ahead and try it out. So if I want to call the tch object, right, the tch person object, which we have created over here, and I wanted to say hello, right? I write tch dot intro, right? And then just like calling a function, I need to have the round brackets. So I go ahead and run this. You're gonna see this says hello, I am Tanchen Hao. So what's going on here is that if we tried to call just the intro function, right? Then you're gonna see that they say intro is not defined because this intro function, right, is not outside the class. If it's outside the class, then this will work. But this intro function is within the class, meaning that it belongs to the object. It belongs to an object, right? And so TCH will have its own intro function and Bob will have its own intro function. So I go ahead and copy this and I change this to Bob over here. Then the first line you're going to see, it says, hello, I'm Tan Chen Hao. And the second line it says, hello, I'm Bob. So the first TCH.intro, right, at line 13 is printing hello, I'm Tan Chen Hao because we're calling the intro function from the belonging to the TCH object. So this intro function, right, that's being called, that prints out this hello, I'm Tan Chen Hao. This function, it belongs to TCH, and I'm telling the TCH object, hey, you over there, perform your function intro, right? And TCH, the TCH object will say, okay, sure, do I have such a function? I do have such a function, right? And it's defined over here. And as for all object functions, right, which are also called methods, right? So functions belonging to objects are called methods, right? Yeah, so it's also called a method. So TCH object has a method called intro. And what does it print? What does it do? Right, the code inside the intro function, inside the intro method, right, is hello, I am self.name. And what is self? Right, self is whichever object I call it from. So in the first case, right, I call tch.intro, self will be tch. So it prints tch.name. So it says hello, I am tch.name. But in the second instance, when I call the intro method from the Bob object, right, as denoted by bob.intro over here, I'm calling Bob's introduction method. So the key distinction here is to note that there's a difference between tch.intro. tch.intro is a different function from bob.intro, right? tch.intro is the intro function belonging to the tch object, whereas bob.intro is the introduction function, the intro function belong to Bob. So that I'm calling two different functions over here, which is why we see two different results over here, right? And yeah, so that's a key distinction, right? And to prove that they're different functions, but I can even print their location, I think. So if I do this, right, you see that this one is a method, is a method person.intro of this object, right? Bob.intro is a method from this other object. So they are different methods, all right? So yeah, so with that, I can also add in, let's say over here, and I am self.age years old, right? So you see that, you know, it says, when I call tch.intro, it says, hello, I am Tan Chen, I'm tch.name, which is Tan Chen Hao, which is set over here, and I am self.age, tch.age, which is 19 years old. And when I call the bob.intro function, right, it says, hello, I am bob.name, right, which is Bob, and I am bob.age years old. And bob.age is 20 because we're passing 20 over here into the constructor. So that's in a sense what methods are about. They are functions belonging to objects.